Hey guys, this is Prag, and today we're going to be looking at the Pokemon FireRed and Leaf Green games, more specifically their UI and their HUD and how they approach their interface. With the release of the newest Pokemon games finally coming to Switch, I thought this was a great time to take a look at some of the older Pokemon games and see how we can freshen them up a bit. I'm a big Pokemon guy myself, so I just thought this would be a fun challenge to do, and we'll just see where it goes. Alright, to start with, I just want to go get a few Pokemon sprites. So we're going to get a Psyduck and we're going to get a Bulbasaur. So I think the general layout is going to be pretty similar to the original Pokemon to start with. We're going to have the Pokemon up here and down here, and we're going to have their corresponding UI for their health and their level and everything on the right and the left side. We're just going to start with that, and then we're going to see how we want to adapt on it further afterwards. All right, okay, so now we know what we're doing. I'm a huge Pokemon nerd myself, so I really want to do this justice. I'm going to try my best here, no promises, but we'll see what we can come up with. And then we're going to go ahead and take like mostly the original design, I think, and then kind of make improvements upon it and try and make it look a little bit more modern and make it feel like, you know, the remake that a lot of us did want, which was something a little bit more modernized. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to take the old layout, we're going to kind of recreate it and then go from there, I think. So bear with me. We're going to take it step by step, and we'll go from there. So let's start with this initial UI that they have. Now they made it a kind of rounded corner on one side and then sharper on the other side to make it feel a little bit more dynamic, I assume. We're gonna start by kind of recreating, and then we're gonna be a little bit more creative with it later on. So let's start with this component right here with the name and everything on it. I actually see that they have a larger, let's bring this to front. I see they have a larger version for the player, whereas the opponent's one gets a smaller version, which is actually quite an interesting thing to note. It means that they want the emphasis to be on your own player character and not on the NPC or the enemy that you're fighting, which I think is quite clever. I haven't actually noticed this as I was playing myself, so that's interesting. We're gonna go ahead and get a little box like this. In fact, we're going to get a frame. We're going to frame this. We're going to remove the rectangle. And we are going to add a fill to this. And then we are going to round off these corners. I want to do something a little bit more rounded for my design. So I'm going to start with at least 16, and we'll see where we want to move from there. Then we also want to have the name of the character. So in this case, we're doing Bulbasaur. Font choice, we're going to stick with Inter for the time being, I believe. Unless we can find something a little bit fun here. We actually have the, we can actually have a little pixel art font. That's interesting. But because we're modernizing it, I want to kind of stick with something a little bit more modern in the look as well. I think also it would be cool to have a stroke around this, kind of similar to what they have. A slightly thicker one, maybe make it like 5. We'll put this on here just to see how it looks. Great. Gender icon. Okay. So there we go. We have this. And then we want to kind of take this blue color that they used and maybe give it a slightly nicer tint. I like something a little darker. Normally this icon is a little bit sideways, like this. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, cool. I think I'm pretty happy with that mail icon. We're just going to go ahead and create a component out of this. And then we can go ahead and drag this in. Wonderful. Okay, cool. We're just going to put our components over here for the time being. We got the mail icon. Wonderful. Now, I believe we want to get this HP bar in probably next. I like the idea they've got going on here, but I do think I want to try and modernize this a little bit. And one of the ways I want to do this is, first and foremost, I want to have it, you know, be a bigger part, because I don't like that it doesn't expand. And I'm also not sure about writing HP. We all know it's an HP bar at this point. So we're going to go ahead and start with a kind of rounded health bar like this. Also, I want to make sure that this frame has a little bit of a layout guide to it. stick to this for now. We don't have to be too crazy about this here. We're just gonna go ahead and auto layout these guys. We're gonna make this centered here. And then we can kind of work with this little layout guide we've got going on here to help us gauge where we're at. Okay, wonderful. I kind of like what they've got going on with like a white stroke around it, and then it's filled. Kind of a dynamic effect with a brush or something. Kind of like this one. And then we're going to go ahead and do the fill, which I believe is going to be like the most important part. So what I was thinking would be kind of cool is obviously in Pokemon games, you have like the health that goes from high to low. And when it's high, it's green. When it's low, it's red, right? So it kind of goes down or the color changes depending on how much HP you have left to kind of indicate where you're at. So what I was thinking is, obviously, I'm not sure this is going to be the best UX. We'd have to like actually test this out and see if people have a strong positive interaction with it and understand it. But what we could do is if we flip these two and then we find a similar tint of red, is we could actually make it so that the bar naturally goes down to a red over time. And we want to make sure that it's mostly green at that point, because the red should only really occur when you're at like say 30%, bottom 25% of your HP, and then the first 75% or so should be a green, versus if we just did like a fully green one. Yeah, it looks a lot nicer. So I like the idea that we were thinking here, where, you know, it goes from the green to the red, but honestly it just doesn't look visually clean. It looks messy. It kind of messes with my brain a little bit. It also looks like I don't know, for some reason it's like screaming watermelon to me, which isn't really what we're going for here. So I think that we should scrap that idea. And I just want to show this because like this is part of the process, you know, you try things, they don't work out, that's fine. We're going to set it aside. We're going to work with a fully green one, and then we would know that once the HP bar goes to a lower health, it would move into, you know, a more reddish hue, kind of like this. For now, let's roll with like a greenish, kind of like a greenish blue. Let's roll with this. And we want to put the stroke back on just to see how that looks. I think that looks pretty cool. So we have the HP bar and everything. I do think it's nice to show the health as well. So let's get the health under here. I was tempted to put it inside of the bar itself, but I realized that we're also going to have the XP bar down here somewhere. And so I think that having it next to it is just fine, because we're going to want to, we also want to use the rule of 8 here. So the rule of 8 is between this. So it's spacing in, they can be divided by 8. We can do 16 for this, and then we can actually do 8 for this one, because it needs to be a little closer, I think, to indicate that they are together. Right, so we want this HP to be connected to this HP bar, which is why we want it a little bit closer. Great, okay. Yeah, so we want a XP bar here as well. Now the XP bar can be pretty simple. I like for this to be a blue color. And we can do something like this, where it's partially filled perhaps as well. So we want to send this to back, and then we probably want to make this one slightly darker, and we're going to use the same shade here. I quite like this, where it's matching the same hue, but we're reducing the saturation of it, so we're making it less colorful. We're making a darker shade of that same color. It makes it feel really cohesive, and it makes it feel like they're connected in a strong way. And I don't think I want this to have a stroke. We're gonna take this color code, gonna do like this, and then we're gonna go ahead and take lightness to like a 20, maybe even a 10, 15. 15 is fine. So you can tell there's a distinct difference in the colors here. I'm also tempted to not have any sort of rounding on this to make sure that everything doesn't feel too together here. Yeah. How does that look in the original game? Yeah, so in the original game, the XP bar is actually underneath here. Okay, so I wanted to try something a little bit experimental. I tried a vertical XP bar, because in all of these games, we kind of only see them as horizontal XP bars, and they're usually within the frame of the character itself or underneath it. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, what if it was vertical? And quite frankly, it just doesn't work. It does not work. So I just wanted to show you guys, you know, like experimenting is cool. And if it doesn't work, that's also cool. And you tried it, you know, and then that's kind of part of UI designs, trying, experimenting, learning, seeing what works, what doesn't work, what, you know, what fails, what doesn't fail. So like here as well, you know, I'm thinking about maybe attaching it to this kind of HUD that we have and making it be part of it underneath, which could work for sure. I actually quite like this, the way this is. We don't want to round this, and then we want to kind of have it attached under here, but we want to round the outside corners and the outside corners here. Yeah, I quite like this. This looks quite nice to me. Yeah, no, I think we're gonna stick to this for now, where, you know, you have like your main thing, and then you have the XP bar on the bottom that kind of goes up, and it attaches to your character's main HUD. Wonderful, cool. Okay, one component is getting close to done. Let's see what else we have to cover here. I tried using Claude to see what Claude would come up with. And this is where we're at. We got Blastoise over here. We got this like technical kind of UI, which I kind of mess with the like the styling of it in a way, but it's just weird, man. It even shows their ability. That's kind of interesting that I wanted to do that. So yeah, once again, we're going back to our own designs. Just wanted to show you guys what AI is currently up to, and, you know, how we're gonna make sure we're staying ahead of the curve, you know. So AI is clearly, I want to say they haven't really cooked here. I don't know what they're cooking. So we need the level as well, of course, somewhere, which I think we can then put up here. Let's put this to be level 5 for now. It is a Bulbasaur after all. It's not evolved yet, so it has to be under that level. Not under level 5, under, I believe Bulbasaur evolves at level, is it 14, 15, or 16? It's one of the three. It's always, for the starters, it's always between 14 and 16, but I can't remember which exactly for Bulbasaur. I believe the grass types typically level a little quicker. Okay, now we want the hierarchy here to be that the name of the Pokemon comes across stronger than the level. So we want to make sure that, you know, this is using a slightly less bold text, and that it is also not like clashing too much with the name here. So let me just experiment a little bit here, and I'll get back to you in a second. So I think we've got a good thing going here. We're gonna go ahead and attach the name and the HP bar with auto layout, the HP bar and the HP text with auto layout as well, so we can easily set their distancing. I think that looks pretty good. And that is gonna be our name component, I think. I'm pretty happy with that, honestly. I've also made sure that all the blacks I'm using is not ever a color that is completely black. It's more like an off black. I like to use 1C, 1C, 1C to make it a little bit less harsh on the eyes. So we have one component here. Now what we can do is we can just duplicate this, and we can make a slightly smaller version of it for the enemy that we're fighting. And in order to do that, I actually want to remove the HP for them, because they don't need to be seeing the full HP amount remaining of the enemy. They can just see the HP bar. And I also want to change, obviously, the name to be Psyduck, because that's what we're going to be using. I also realized that the HP is probably way too high for a level 5 Pokemon. So we're going to go ahead and do something more like 36. And I actually like putting HP there as well. I think that's quite clean, because it also indicates that the bar above is the health points. What we can then do is maybe even make this like a semi-bold so that the HP stands out a little more. Okay, so I tried experimenting a little bit with the HP bar here. Doesn't really work. I think we're gonna go back to the old approach where we're just gonna say it's on the left side here, left aligned like this. And I'm pretty happy with that. And with that being said, I actually think this should also be completely aligned to make sure that this doesn't feel off. Because if this is aligned, then this should be aligned. I also want to make sure that this is an 8 pixel gap instead of what it was. Perfect. So now we have the Psyduck's UI slightly simplified, slightly smaller. We're going to be removing the XP bar as well. So there we've got Psyduck, and then we've got Bulbasaur, which is our own Pokemon down here. Great, okay. We can also make these into components. So go ahead and create component. So now we're starting to get some of the pieces together. We can actually start putting some of this stuff in. We've got the enemy HUD, we've got our own Pokemon HUD, and we have our actual Pokemon here in as well. But what we're still missing is this kind of bottom bar here. What will Squirtle do, or in this case, what will Bulbasaur do, as well as the battle arena and the main selection and move selection. So I think I'm going to skip the what will Squirtle do fight back Pokemon run, and we're just going to hop right into like a battle. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've gotten a inspiration here where we can see kind of just the, it's very low res, but it works, where we can see the attacks and we can see how much PP it has and if it's a normal or a water or fighting or whatever. I think that's where we can really innovate here, is we can kind of, I say innovate, we can simplify and we can make it more fun, more clean. So we're going to keep these here. We're going to start working on a new one. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to start by making one of these moves, just so we can get an idea of what we want this to look like and how it's going to feel and play. So we're going to go ahead and use the same stroke that we've been using for most of these components, which is a 5 on the inside. So let's see. So we have the moves here. So we're going to want this to be, let's say this is a Vine Whip. So we're going to move this down here. This is Vine Whip. And we want this to be, you know, I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think of the old UI, what you guys think of the new UI. I say new UI, what you guys think of my UI inevitably. But I also would love to hear how you guys would redesign it. Like any cool ideas you guys have, anything that you're thinking of, like, you know, oh man, I wish they did this, or I wish they did that. You know, I would love to hear, what you guys think, as someone who's played every single Pokemon game ever growing up, especially Pokemon Emerald was my absolute favorite. I love that game so much. Okay, I know one thing I really want to do with this is I want to make everything a little bit more simplified. So I want to make sure that we have the PP and everything in one area. So I would want to do something like PP like this. And then I would want to do, let's say like this is 12 out of 20. Now bear with me here, it's going to look a little bit goofy for a little while here. We'll go ahead and find this, and then we want to make sure it hugs the contents. All right, wonderful. What I really wanted to do with this was I want to take I want to use the plugin at Iconify here. And I want to go ahead and get a grass icon, or like a leaf at least, you know? We're going to take this leaf, we're going to import it. I like this one a lot. Make it a little bit bigger at least. Players are smart enough to understand that a leaf, sorry, means grass, and you know, similar for other effects. So we're gonna take this, I'm gonna put it into here, gonna send to back. All right, so I think I have a couple of designs here that I was kind of looking at and considering. So I really like using this kind of leaf as an icon to showcase what type of move it is. And then I've added in the name of the move. I've also added in this part, which I'm not really sure I would want to keep because it's, you know, these icons feel a little bit more RPG, less Pokemon, to be honest. But I thought it would be interesting to experiment with what if the user could actually see the amount of damage that their attack is dealing and also the accuracy of their move just on the actual move itself, because I know this is something a lot of new players, you know, struggle with. And there's also in a lot of the Pokemon games where you have to press onto the attack and then there's an extra screen to see what the attack does and then you can attack. Or in FireRed, there's actually none of that. It's just only in the like when you inspect your team and you go to summary and then you go check out your moves, you can see exactly what the move does. So you have an either or kind of mentality where either it's a bad UX experience because you have to go through multiple screens, which makes it annoying and tedious over time, or you have an experience where you're forced to essentially dig and go looking for the stats that you're trying to find. So, you know, I'm not 100% sold on this approach, but I think it's a compromise that I would be willing to explore and kind of take a little bit farther potentially. I'm not huge on the fact that these feel, you know, the same weight, but also they're both equally important. So I don't know, it's a little tricky. I'm almost tempted to make one of them green, but I also don't want to. Best thing we can do is make them stand out slightly by slightly increasing their lightness to blend them in a little bit. Cool. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. So I experimented with these two. I've got this kind of gradient version here where the leaf kind of blends more in and then you've got the text on top, which I think at that point we should honestly consider making the text light again, but then there's a contrast issue. So I like this one. It sticks with the same kind of styling we've got going on here and it kind of keeps everything uniform. So we're going to go ahead and remove the old one and we're going to go ahead and use the new one that we've designed. We'll turn this into a component as well. We'll put it in our little component screen. And then we're going to go ahead and get assets and move. All right. And in all likelihood, we're going to have to make a few of these now because we need each of these to be a unique move. So we've got Leech Seed, which actually does 0 damage, but has another effect, which then we stumble into an issue of UX again, where, okay, it does 0 damage. Why would I want to use this? So we would have to consider maybe having some sort of item description or attack description, which tells us that, you know, maybe this isn't the best move for the game. And that's okay. You know, we discover these things as we go. We're going to stick with it for now just because, you know, we're already committed to this and I don't want this to be a 10-hour long video where we go through 100 designs. But it's just interesting to note that, you know, there's things you can do to make the experience better, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So just always think of the UX of your user when designing, you know, like what is the user doing? How is this going to work? How do they interact with the environment? All that stuff. Okay, so for the normal type component, I'm thinking we just do like a gray to kind of reflect the normal typing. And then we keep the same icon size and we just use a star, kind of similar to how the star is in the Pokemon games. This was more of like a rounded one, a little bit more of a modern take. And then we just kind of go from there. And then I've also realized that they use this icon for moves that don't deal direct damage. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the same kind of icon. All right, and I'm just making sure that I have the correct PP here as well. So this move has 40 PP. We're going to also make sure that this is hugging the contents. And that should be good. Great. So we got Growl, and then he also has Tackle. So we're going to just go ahead and add that as well. And there we go. That's beautiful. Let's get to the actual, you know, adding in the Pokemon and kind of finishing touches. So what I want to go ahead and do is I want to use AI for the background, because we don't have any backgrounds to work from. Obviously, we could take one from a Pokemon game, like I've done with the sprites. I've taken the sprites from Gen 8, but I think it'd be cool to have, you know, something a little bit unique from for our own design. So let's see how this goes. Okay, great. So we have the platform, and then we have the background asset here. So we have a clean slate. Okay, we're gonna start off with these platform assets. Bring to front. And then we're gonna put another platform on Psyduck over here. Bring him to front. Okay, great. So now we have the platforms and the Pokemon standing on them. I think I want to hide this one a little bit behind the UI, like this. Make it a little bit more immersive, get a little bit more of that screen real estate. Obviously, Psyduck's a water type, so it wouldn't really appear on a grass tile, but we're going to work with this for the time being. And then what we could do is we could throw in like a background here, maybe use like a gradient color or something. Let's see. And what they do in the OG Pokemon games is they have these like stripes, which we could try and recreate as well. Shouldn't really be too hard, honestly. We could kind of just do this stripe effect down like this, almost like a CRT panel. And I mean, it kind of matches the original. Obviously, they have, yeah, it's pretty low res in this image, but we can work with it. And I think that's honestly okay for now. I think these, you know, if we wanted to be picky about it, these should probably be a little bit less, have a little bit more contrast to them so that they stand out from the background a bit more. And then of course there's, you know, the matter of white space and everything, and make sure everything's clean. But I think we have here what we could consider a decent layout. I want to use these a little bit stronger. But yeah, so we have the original, looks a little bit like this, very low res image. We get the general idea. And then we have the kind of remade, modernized version take on it. Actually, one thing I do think we should do that I like that they've done is kind of giving a little bit of a contrast to this player box, because I don't like how it blends in with the move boxes. So we're gonna try and give these a little bit of color, but something that isn't gonna kind of ruin the contrast and everything, not be too strong. I think this is nice. And then for these as well, maybe thicken those a little bit. But yeah, that's gonna be it. So here's the old, looks like this, and here's the new. We got the XP bar on the bottom here. We got the health, how much health is remaining. We got the health bar, which would obviously be red when it kind of lowers to a lower health, and stays green once it's healthy. Anything under 30% I would consider low HP. And then we've got the health, the name of the Pokemon, the gender of the Pokemon, which we made a little quick icon for, and then the level. And the enemy has a bit of a simpler kind of layout for it. Also a slightly smaller box to make it clear that this is our Pokemon. We have these moves here, which are essentially just grass and normal here. But if we had other elements, we could also do like water icons and flying icons, you know, like a little bird, a feather. A lot of ways to kind of innovate on this moveset layout. And we made a little quick background to kind of reflect the original, where they have this like striped CRT kind of panels going on, and then the backgrounds themselves. This looks pretty good. I used the modern assets from Gen 8, so obviously they don't really blend fully in. But I think it works pretty well, and I think we have a cool layout here. So that was kind of just this first episode of kind of redesigning game HUDs. I wanted to look at Pokemon FireRed specifically because it's quite trending right now with the Switch remake finally coming through, and I'm kind of curious to see if they do anything different with the HUD or if they've simply just ported it, which I believe they have just fully ported it. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, I wanted to give you guys my take on it, and from there, you know, you'd add in some hover effects, maybe some other elements and stuff, and animate it. But this is kind of where I'm at for now, and I'm going to stop it there so this doesn't turn into like an 8-hour long video. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know if you should do more of these, and let me know if you like the layout or if you think it's trash. That's fine. Put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions and what you would have done differently. And until next time, I'll see you guys then. Have a good day.